Hello guys, so this week we are writing equations in slope-intercept form. A formula that we've dealt with before, but I want to go back through it just to make sure you completely understand it. The formula is y equal mx plus b, where m is always your slope and b is your y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point where the line touches the y-axis. So here's our formula, y equal mx plus b, and that's what we're writing equations in that form. But in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, we need two things. We must have our slope, and we have to have our y-intercept. So I want to go back and recap something we've done before also when we're finding the slope given 2 points. And to do that, we have to use this slope formula right here. M equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And here I've given you a pair of points, and I just want to work on this formula first before we go any further into what we're going to do today. So you've been given these 2 points and you need to find the slope. So the first thing you're going to do is label the points. We know that ordered pairs are x first, then the y. Because we have 2 sets of ordered pairs, this one can be the first value of x and the first value of y. This one can be the second value of x and the second value of y. So let's go ahead and label those points. So we have x1, y1, and then we have x2, y2. So now that we've labeled the points, we're going to take each of these numbers and plug them into our formula. So where you have y sub 2, you're going to write 3 minus y sub 1, which is negative 9, all over x sub 2, which is 2, minus x sub 1, which is 5. Now in math, these two negatives right here make a positive. So we have 3 plus 9. That's going to give us 12 over 2 minus 5. That's going to give us negative 3. So since 12 over negative 3 can be reduced, we need to reduce this, and that gives us a slope of negative 4. So that is our slope. When you are finding the slope and given 2 pairs of points, as we have been given right here, the first thing you have to do is label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And now, once we found the slope, then we're still not ready to write the equation in slope-intercept form yet. Because in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, you have to have a slope and you have to have a y-intercept. So something is still missing. We've got to find our b. So let's look back at what we found here. We found that our slope is negative 4, and that's our m. But we need to find this b. So now what we're going to do, we can take the slope that we found and choose to use either one of these points to find out what b is. So I'm going to take the first point that I have here and plug the first number into my formula for the x, the second number into my formula for the y, plug in the negative 4 into my formula for the m, and that'll give me enough information to find my b. So taking my equation, y equal mx plus b, I'll replace my x with 5. I'll replace my y with negative 9. I'll replace my m with -4. And of course, that gives me enough information to find my b. So now when I multiply -4 times 5, that's going to give me -20. And so to get b by itself, I need to move this 20 to the other side. Because it's negative, to move it, I'm going to make it positive on both sides. The 20s will cancel, so b is equal to -9 plus 20, which is 11. So now that I have b and I have m, well, naturally, I can write an equation in slope-intercept form. So that equation is y equal -4x plus 11. And I'm finished. But what if I chose to use the second point instead of this one? If I allowed the 2 to be my x and the y to be 3, will I get the same exact equation? And that's what we're about to find out. So let's use the second point. Even though we're done, I want to show you that you can choose to use any point that you want. So I'm going to use this point. Still rewriting my equation. I'll let the x be my 2. I'll let the y equal 3. And of course, my m, my slope, is 4. And that's going to let me find b. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in what I have. So I'm plugging in 3 for the y. I'm plugging in the -4 for the m. I'm plugging in 2 for my x. And the b, of course, is what we have to find. So when I do the math, -4 times 2 is -8. To get b by itself, I need to get rid of this -8 by adding 8 to both sides. The 8's will cancel, and you see that b is equal to 11. Well, I have my b, I have my slope, and we have our equation. So as you can see, it doesn't matter which point you use, you get the same exact result. So let's go back through what we did. So the first thing, we were trying to write an equation in slope-intercept form. But first we had to find the slope using this pair of points that they were given. And then we labeled the points, plugged them into the formula, and found that the slope was -4. Now that we found the slope, we'll take our slope, choosing to use either one of these points to find our b. And that's what I did here. That gave me b is equal to 11. Once I know my y-intercept and I know my slope, I have my equation. And I also wanted to do the second part just to show you that if you chose the second point, you would get the same exact answer. So let's try one from scratch and see what happens. So we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form using the given points. And our points are 5, -1, and 4, +2. So remember, in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, you need two things. You need the slope and the y-intercept. Well, we're not given either, but we're given enough information with these pair of points to find everything that we need. So this is our equation that our answer has to be in. However, this is another equation or formula that you're going to need to use. The formula for finding slope. So I want you to take a minute. I'm going to pause the video, give you an opportunity to find that answer. Okay, so we're back. So the first thing I did, I labeled my points. My 5 is x1, my -1 is y1, my 4 is x2, my 2 is y2. Labeling those points, I plug them into the formula. Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That gave me 3 over -1, which reduces to -3, so I have a slope of -3. Now that I have my slope, I'm going to take my first point to find my y-intercept. And I did that right here. I replaced the y with -1, and that came from here. My slope is -3, and we found that. And my x I replaced with 5, and of course that came from here, the first point. Now when I did the math, -3 times 5 is -15. Everything else comes down. To get the b on the side by itself, I'm going to move the -15 by doing the opposite, which is adding it to both sides. The 15s will cancel. B is equal to 14. So now that I know that my y-intercept is 14, we found our slope is -3, and we have our equation in slope-intercept form, and we're done. However, if you chose the second point, the 4, 2, where your x was 4 and your y is 2, then here's that work as well. So I replaced y with 2. Of course, my slope is still -3. My x was 4, and the b is our unknown. Doing the computation here, -3 times 4 is -12. To get the 12 to the other side, I added it to both sides. The 12s cancel. B is by itself, and 2 plus 12 is 14. Now, my equation is y equal -3x plus 14. As you can see, it doesn't matter which point you choose to use, both equations will be the same. This video is also going to be posted in Google Classroom. You can take as much time as you need to go through it, and hopefully this will answer any of your questions.